Families, I want to show you an advanced sewing technique for older children. It's hard to know exactly when children are ready. Some children can be ready for this work as early as 4.5 years old if they enjoy sewing and have been doing it a lot. Some children need to practice their sewing before we offer them this work. What we want to see is that they can successfully sew a shape that we have sent home, first on paper and then on felt, before showing them this. And we would hope that they could do it somewhat independently. In the packet, we sent home 4 different patterns. I'm going to work with the elephant. If you look closely, this pattern, you can see dots where holes need to be punched for the stitches. An older child can actually punch them themselves if you have an awl. Remember to encourage your child to hold the awl delicately like a pencil and to punch the stitches where the holes are designated to go. For this sewing, we need a slightly thinner needle, ideally with a very large eye. I really like quilting needles for this, but if you don't have a quilting needle at home, another kind of needle that might work is a kind of self-threading needle. What we ideally want to do is help the young child to be able to thread the needle on their own. Here's our little packet of thread, and we're going to unwind. This is the same embroidery thread that we use. Again, if you have a needle with a large eye, encourage your child to try to thread the needle. Have the 2 ends meet together and stretch the needle all the way down to the center. Encourage the child to tie their own knot. For the first pattern that we do, we use a running stitch. It's the same exact stitch the children used to sew shapes. Only this time we want to teach them that the knot belongs in the back. We're going to hide the knot behind the pattern. We can also encourage them with this work to not turn the paper over, but instead to search for the hole with the needle. If they can't find it, they can peek on the other side. We're getting close to the end. The end for a child is going to be more thread than you as an adult might leave till the end. But it's important that they have enough to make the loop at the end. Right about now I'm thinking the next stitch should be my last stitch. So I'm going to thread the needle down and turn the paper over. It's my last stitch because I need to be able to make a large enough circle in order to pass the needle through the circle. I want to teach the child to hold their finger close to the paper so that the knot is right at the edge. After the child has completed an entire pattern with a running stitch, we can show them how to do the back stitch. Again, I remind them that in the back stitch, we always want the knot to start on the back. The first stitch will be just like the running stitch. I will go down. I will look on the back for the very next hole and come up. Only this time with the back stitch, I want to go back down the hole. My goal is to cover up all of the black of the pattern. When I turn it over, this time I'm looking for the very next hole. Now, instead of running forward, I go back down the hole I made to cover up the line. I turn it over and look for the very next hole. Instead of running forward, I go back to the hole I made and cover up the line. I look for the very next hole. Instead of running. Again, the trick with this stitch is to make sure that the child leaves enough thread at the end in order to make a proper knot. This is getting short enough that this will be my last stitch. I invite the child to make a loop and pass the needle through the loop, holding their finger on the paper where they want the knot to go. When your child starts again, they want to start in this hole down here where they ended. So their very next knot will be in the very next hole to the knot they made. When they have stitched the entire pattern, I sometimes invite them to paint it with watercolors. It becomes